All right, so I don't know what's going on with my equipment, but they're all trying to sabotage me right now. I don't know what's going on, okay? But I'm sorry in advance for any technical issues that you will hear throughout the video because I refuse to re-record the video unless it is like actually unsalvageable because I do not have time for that. The overconsumption of items and goods have been a very hot topic of conversation for some years now. It continues to astonish me that every month I get a video popping up on my front YouTube page talking about yet another item that everyone is running to the stores for. But recently, there's been a shift. For better or for worse, it's up for debate. That's the point of this conversation today. But there's been a sudden shift of energy. A hero from amongst the shadows have resurfaced to combat all of this overconsumption nonsense that's going on. A vigilante in the dark. And her name is thrift stores. Thrifting has come full circle into being trendy and fun again and basically a hobby for a lot of people, but also a great way to help the environment. You give away old clothes and stuff that you don't need anymore so it can be sold at an affordable price so a low-life peasant like myself can go and buy it if I need to. So now you have space in your closet for new clothes. And if you're lucky enough, you might just find a rare ancient $1 million worth artifact and you can sell it and retire in your 20s. Or at the very least, you can find a really good pair of good quality jeans that'll last you until you die, which is basically just the same as trying to find a vintage artifact worth $1 million at this point, because neither of those events are even likely to happen. You probably have a better chance being struck by lightning than finding a good quality piece of clothing at the thrift. Thrift stores have kind of become a scapegoat for people to practice the same bad shopping behaviors that they were doing before, just with a lot less guilt. And this goes for people who donate at the thrifts and the people who shop there, because it makes it a lot easier to overlook something if it's said it's being done for a good cause. So let's start with the donating aspect of things, because that's really where everything starts. Being charitable is always a good thing. Giving away stuff that you're not using anymore is a great way to reduce waste. You give your clothes a second chance at life for people who actually want those items and can't afford to buy new clothes. That's usually the reason that historically we have been able to find vintage clothes in the first place. But now, all you see now is a bunch of Shein, Fashion Nova, Forever 21, and all those other clothing stores that you could get their clothes cheap online anyway, so it defeats the purpose of it being in a thrift store. And then some thrift stores will have the audacity to price it more than what it's originally worth. Fast fashion clothes have completely infiltrated the thrifts, which I ended up investigating myself in a video I made over the summer. I was searching around a handful of thrift stores in my area to see what was there, specifically to see how much fast fashion I could find, but I was also on a side quest to find some clothes that I needed for some sports. And the amount of fast fashion clothing that I found there was ridiculous, and I didn't even have to look that hard. So what we're seeing is an influx of people buying from these stores, such as Shein, Fashion Nova, Pretty Girl, all those other places, in very large amounts. These are most likely going to be your huge hauls and your impulse buys, especially for online stores because their sites are designed to keep you filling your cart and checking out with a large sum of clothes. And of course, when people are shopping online, they're gonna tell themselves, yeah, I'm definitely gonna wear all this stuff. And even when you're shopping in stores too, yeah, I'm definitely gonna wear all this stuff that I just bought. And then you get home, you open all the stuff that you ordered, and then you end up only wearing like 3 of the pieces once, and then you never even touch the other pieces. So now you got a whole pile of clothes. You don't know what to do with them because you don't like them like you thought you would when you bought them. Well, now what are we supposed to do? Oh, I know. Let's just donate them all. It's still a good cause. Technically, I'm giving it away to other people so they can wear it. It nullifies the negative act of over-consuming because now you have something to fall back on. If I don't use this, I can just give it away. But you know what would have been better? Not buying it in the first place. Let's be real here. You bought all that stuff because you saw a pretty girl on Pinterest wearing it and you thought you were gonna look the same way in those clothes too. We've all been there before. I know, it's okay, I get it. But the stuff you bought isn't going to be something you'll wear for a very long time. Especially if you are the type of person who likes to hop on trends and do a lot of the fashion trends, which are changing like every week. You know dang well that you're not gonna keep those clothes for a long time before it ends up becoming an old trend. So you should have just left it where it was, unordered. And I am going to address one thing just because I have a feeling somebody is going to bring it up in the comments. But there's always that question of, if it's made already, what's the harm to it? I mean, they already utilized the materials. I may as well buy it because it's there, it's created already. They already used materials and used resources to make it, so I may as well give it use. Sure, but they already made it because they know there will be demand for it. If we don't buy it, they won't make it because they know it'll be a waste of money for them. So it still would have just been better not to buy it, because when they realize nobody's buying these things, they're not going to keep making them. Having the thought that you're just going to donate the clothes anyway doesn't justify the excess of the purchase. But okay, fine, you decided to donate your clothes because you didn't want them anymore after wearing it for like 1 week. So now we go to the second part of the life cycle, the thrifting aspect. There are so many videos out there of people showing their thrift hauls or showing their massive thrift finds in a day. And some of them are doing this like almost every week, running to the thrifts to go see what's there and then leaving with giant bags of clothes. And it's kind of like, hold on. I feel like this is defeating the purpose of why we wanted to encourage people to go to the thrifts in the first place. Because the whole thing about thrift stores and why it got popular, or at least why it was supposed to get popular, why people were really trying to push this idea to other people, is because it's a more eco-friendly and environmentally conscious way to get new clothes. So that way you're not a Shein shopper that's killing the planet. The whole point was so that people can be more mindful of where they shop, so they don't contribute to fast fashion. They reuse things instead of buying new. But now it all just kind of seems like virtue signaling, for lack of a better phrase. Just kind of, look at me, I'm shopping at the thrifts, look at me helping the environment, look how good of a person I am, type of thing. But that's not really fixing the issue, because you can still shop unethically while shopping at quote unquote more ethical places. This is the concept I was trying to get at in my minimalism and consumerism video, which seemed to upset some people, which was not my intention. The video was meant to be somewhat of a counter to the incessant hate towards minimalism, because I love to play the devil's advocate, but also to bring light to a contradiction in people wanting things to stop being minimal, bland, and boring. But the alternative would mean that you would need more resources and need to spend more money and buy more things, which goes against our striving mission to stop people from consuming so much. And not even just overconsumption, but just unnecessary consumerism in general. But the most common angry rebuttal in that comment section brought up the fact that like, oh, well, you can still buy stuff that you want if you get it from the thrifts or small businesses, and if you buy all of these pieces over time. Okay, that's cool, fine, and dandy. But is that not still contributing to consumerism? Are you still not buying stuff? Specifically unnecessary stuff that you technically do not need. The whole idea is that recently people have been saying that consumerism is getting way out of hand because we as a people keep buying things of an excess that we don't actually need. So sure, it's great if you buy secondhand from a small business, but that doesn't stop the fact that you still bought an excess of something that you didn't need in the first place, regardless of what it is or how long over time you've been trying to collect it. And as I explained towards the end of that video, it wasn't me trying to tell people that they just can't buy anything or can't get anything that they want, or that they can't do anything fun with their money or else they'll be killing the planet. I think that's where the frustration came in, because people believe that that's what I was trying to say. It was really meant to be more of a philosophical discussion on how we tend to make situations very black and white as per usual, when it's a lot more complicated than we're giving it credit for, and a lot of the issues overlap. It's just something to keep in mind when you're going shopping, as well as when you're advocating for the death of consumerism or something like that, or ridiculing people for being consumerist. But let's go ahead and shy away from that, specifically regarding consumerism, because at the end of the day, we all have to be consumers. We all have to buy stuff. We can't not buy things. We're always relying on some other resources from an outside source in order to survive. But we'll still take that concept and apply it to thrifting and what we're seeing with these thrift hauls. Leaving stores with a bag full of thrifted clothes, especially quite frequently, defeats the purpose of thrifting in the first place. When you thrift, it's supposed to be better than buying new, especially at places like fast fashion stores. But it doesn't make a lot of sense you getting a bunch of clothes from the thrifts that, let's be real here, you're probably not going to wear all of them or wear them frequently enough, or you're just going to get bored of it because once again, trends change very quickly. And sure, you might think initially that, well, I'm saving it from the shelves, because for all who doesn't know, a lot of clothes that are in the thrifts actually just end up in the landfills anyway because nobody ends up buying them. So yeah, essentially you would be saving it from the shelves, but not if you're not gonna wear it. It really could have just stayed in the store for somebody else to buy it who would have actually worn it and could have actually needed it considering their financial situation. Because let's be very honest here, most of us aren't going to the thrift stores 100% because we need to. As in, you have no clothing in your house and you are dirt poor, dirt broke, and you need some cheap but good quality clothes. A lot of people do it because it's a hobby, because it's fun. And there's also an added element of surprise. Every time you get there, there are going to be new items. It's not like retail stores where for the most part they have the same items there, except if they're doing something for like a holiday or for a season change, or maybe if they're collaborating with some company or celebrity and they'll have a drop of new clothes or something like that. For the most part, their options are pretty static, so going to the thrift allows you to have this wide variety of different types of clothes pretty much every single day. So that adds to the want to buy excess because, well, if I don't get it today, it may not be there tomorrow. I could never see it again. And it's perfectly fine if I don't actually wear it because I can just donate it again. But that just continues the cycle over and over again when you could have just left it in the store. You're still practicing the same behaviors of overconsumption that we wanted to stop people from doing. It doesn't matter if you're doing it from an ethical place. The immediate thought process of a lot of people is that as long as I'm doing it from a place that is generally seen as the better alternative, it's okay that I'm buying a heap load of clothes that I don't need because I'm getting it from a good place, so it cancels out. No, that's not how the math works. Of course, it's always better to buy secondhand over a place like Shein. It's perfectly fine that you want to buy from a small business, a thrift store, mom and pop shop, eco-friendly, organic, all the other labels you want to throw on there. That's fine, but it doesn't mean anything if you're still going to practice the problematic shopping behaviors that you were practicing before. And just to go on a bit of a tangent, but it's still related, this is something that you will see all the time whenever we try to make movements in order to improve society, especially when it becomes a trend. I don't want to call it performative activism. I feel like that phrase gets very overused nowadays, especially because I do believe a lot of these people genuinely want to help the environment, or at the very least they care and they understand that it's a problem. It's just that people seem to get caught up in the talk of it all and will forget the principle behind why it's important to do it in the first place. One of the best examples that I can think of that kind of paints this whole concept very clearly is that whole Poppy soda situation that happened not too long ago. For anybody who doesn't know, a healthy soda company named Poppy got into a little bit of controversy like last year, I think, because they sent entire vending machines to influencers' houses to promote their soda during the Super Bowl. And it kind of got everybody pissed off. I already talked about the situation in another video a while back, but I honestly don't know why that situation in particular got everybody riled up. Not because it wasn't ridiculous. Like, yeah, I do think it's excessive to send individual people entire vending machines and then tons of soda to fit in those vending machines that they're probably not going to drink at all. So it's not that it wasn't ridiculous, it's just that it wasn't anything new. As if companies don't send outrageous amounts of things to celebrities and people who already have it to promote their stuff all the time. I mean, celebrity advertising is something we've been doing for years. But what I found to be the funniest thing about the situation is about the people who are expressing their frustration for this out-of-touch company wasting their sodas on influencers who don't need it, when they could have been donating to places that do need it. Which is what Olipop, their competitor, claimed to be doing as a way to win over Poppy's customers, and it worked like a charm. They made a bragging post that was like, oh, we send our sodas to firefighters and to people in need. And that was it. Like, everybody started swooning over them, being like, oh my gosh, Olipop is the better. It's like, guys, you're just falling for another form of marketing. Like, that was really scummy that they did that, by the way. Like, from a business perspective, it's genius, but from an ethical, me as a person perspective, that was really icky to me. Don't use your good deeds as a way to win over customers, okay? I feel like anybody who has to do that is just But anyways, everybody was all outraged and all upset and like, oh my gosh, Poppy's so out of touch. What can I do to show them that I'm not with them anymore? What can I do to show my stand against Poppy and boycott against them? Oh, I know. I can just waste the bottles of Poppy soda that I have by throwing them away and pouring perfectly good soda down the sink. That'll show them. Yeah, so people were wasting their Poppy sodas to show their frustration towards Poppy being out of touch for wasting sodas. At least Poppy gave it to actual people and they still ended up drinking at least some of it. You're just wasting it completely, throwing it away and pouring it down the sink. No one's gonna use it now. But it's that thought process. Like, just to put into perspective what I'm talking about, it's that thought process of they're confused, but they've got the spirit. Kind of like that meme where it's like they know they should be mad and they understand that what happened is frustrating, but they're not exactly sure why. They're just kind of going off of the vibes of everybody else. So they end up doing something that doesn't make sense because they don't understand the principle of the problem. The same way Poppy could have given their sodas to people who need it, you could have given your sodas to people who need it, or given it to somebody who wanted it instead of wasting it and throwing it down the sink. They only understand it was a misuse of resources, but because everybody was talking about it on TikTok. If you're doing something good just because people tell you that it's good, you're better off just not doing it in the first place because you don't understand. You need to understand the moral principle behind it, why it's good. You shouldn't just be doing it because everybody else is outraged, so you may as well be too. Because even if you are supporting and trying to help a good cause without understanding why, even though it will be immediately a net positive, in other situations where that would warrant the same type of actions, you couldn't rely on those types of people to do it, to have that same activist mindset, because they didn't do it in the first place with a true understanding of why it was good, why it was the right thing to do. Is all this making sense? It's kind of like those situations where people go to protest, but they have absolutely no idea what they're protesting for, so they're just kind of shouting the phrases everybody else is shouting and throwing up signs. They don't really get why, but everybody around them is telling them it's for a good cause. Sure, it helps in that moment, but in other moments where they need to come out and protest again, or any other type of activist acts where they need to act, they won't see the importance in doing it unless somebody else tells them what the moral behind it is. They won't apply those concepts and morals to other situations, in other things that need to be protested about. You need to know the why of you doing something. Why is it important that you do or say something? As a very quick personal example, I actually experienced this when I made a video over the summer talking about corporate greed. And in the video, I was expressing my frustrations onto how businesses take advantage of us, not paying us fair wages, even though they know they can afford it, slaving us away and stuff like like that, right? And there was quite a few people in the comments that questioned my word usage, specifically telling me that I should have said capitalism and not corporations. Why didn't I say that capitalism was the problem? Why didn't I say that capitalism should die and we should all turn to socialism? Why didn't I say those things? Why did I say corporations? And I've already expressed at the end of the video why, but of course I can't expect everybody to watch through the whole video before complaining. But I've expressed this because I am not confident enough in my knowledge or competence in economics and politics to fully understand what it means to just say down with capitalism. I grew up in a very non-political / economical understanding household. We were just never really involved nor informed. So it was only just very recently that I took it upon myself to start learning as much as I could and start understanding certain things, just so I don't keep feigning ignorance toward these concepts. Because let's be real here, no one else was going to teach me. School didn't teach me, at least not the stuff that really mattered. And everyone is expecting you to know the right opinion right out of high school, even though nobody taught us anything. So what do we end up doing? We just follow what everybody else says, just because everybody else is saying that that is right. So people in the comments were pressuring me to be like, you should have said capitalism. You should have said that that's the problem because that's what the general majority is. But again, if I do not understand why that should be the case, even if it is the right answer, why would I go around blindly saying something I do not understand? That's why I really hate it whenever people on the internet are like, I wish people would engage in critical thinking sometimes. I wish people would have their own opinion and think for themselves. No, you don't. Shut up. Nobody actually believes that when they say that. What they want is for you to agree with their opinion so you can validate them and make them feel right. That's what people want. Because even if you do have your own opinion, they will still ridicule you for it. So in my case, I said corporations because I'm familiar with how businesses work. As somebody who was interested in marketing, I learned a lot and taught myself a lot when it comes to the business world. It's one of the reasons why I'm wavering towards that career path now, because there's so much deception and dishonesty and so much of the ethics that are just all out of whack in that space. But the point is, I somewhat understand it. And at the very least, I understand how they're slaving us away unethically. I have a level of understanding in that area. But when it comes to things like macroeconomics, different economic systems, and how that affects the whole political system, which economic systems run better, and then going through the history of how all of those systems have operated, how they operate in different countries, and whether or not they work, there is so much that encompasses these things. And I haven't gotten all there yet. So even if it is the right answer to destroy capitalism, I'm not saying that isn't. Maybe it is. Maybe that is the right way. Again, what is me coming on here and going down with capitalism? Okay, well, what is that going to do? Then what's the next step? How do we do that? How do we end up forming a better economic system? I won't be able to answer any of that if I don't understand why. I'm not going to say something with my chest unless I understand what I'm saying. And we need to be more comfortable and honest with ourselves about that, rather than immediately jumping to a conclusion without further thought, just because that's what everybody expects us to do. It all means nothing if you can't understand the principle behind it. So, relating all this back to the thrift store situation, donating to the thrift and buying clothes from the thrift are both really great ways to reduce waste. You can help the environment, you can give clothes a new life, and you can remove yourself from businesses who have these unethical practices, who engage in slave labor and damage the environment and stuff like that. So doing these things are great, so long as you're doing it with intention. Otherwise, it makes no difference. When you get so caught up in the labels and the antics of what everybody else is spewing, it starts to lose meaning very fast. And everybody forgets why they were doing it in the first place, or why it was important to do in the first place. There's nothing wrong with wanting to buy some items that you want. But I think we kind of just completely forgot about that third saying of the 3 R's that we used to learn in kindergarten. Reuse, reduce, and recycle. Emphasis on reduce. When you go to these stores, be intentional with what you buy. Reducing what we buy is going to help with the environment as well. That includes getting it from thrift stores. Just because you go to a thrift store does not mean that you can OD on clothes. That defeats the purpose, the core moral principle behind why we wanted to start thrifting in the first place. If you need a pair of pants, go to the thrift for a pair of pants. Don't leave with a haul that you're most likely not even gonna use. Even if you do shop at places like Shein. I encourage you not to, obviously. I would prefer that you do not shop at places like Shein, Temu, whatever. But I'm always really careful about not putting myself on a high horse or setting my thought process up with some moral superiority just because I don't shop at a place like Shein. Because I do still shop at other places that most likely do contribute to the same issues. And I just want to remind everybody of that fact as well, so they don't get too caught up in their own ego being like, well, I don't shop at Shein, so I'm saving the environment. but you just ordered like 5 things from Amazon not too long ago. We all do, unfortunately, contribute to these issues, to the issues of the environment, to the issues of slave labor. Regardless of where we shop, it is very difficult to escape, unfortunately. And in this economy that we're in right now, where things are just ridiculously expensive, I can understand if you feel like you have to turn to a place like Shein to get some clothes, because they do have them very cheap. It is very affordable. But once again, make sure you're intentional with what you're buying. Make sure that's what you're getting. Have a plan and be intentional. That's how we reduce waste. That's how we also help the environment. Don't think that it's just the places that you shop that needs to change. Again, when you do that, you get too comfortable. You say, well, I'm buying from small businesses and thrift stores, so I'm doing my part. You're not if you're not changing your behavior. Be more rational about you buying things regardless of where you're getting it from. Because I would argue that's a lot more important than where you shop. It's how you shop. Because then you can apply these same principles to wherever it is that you shop. And that's how we can really do our part into trying to help reduce waste and helping the environment. So that is all I wanted to talk about today. Thank you all so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye.